everybody, I'm Alice K. Ruckelhaus from SufferingWell, and I'm here to talk to you again about a martyr, a Catholic martyr. And we have two women here. They're Felicity and Perpetua. I'm not really sure which is which, but their stories go together, but there's so much to tell about them that I'm going to split them up into two different videos. Anyway, this particular painting is by Sue Kuma Johnson, and I will include her information below so that you can look at that. I just think this is beautiful. I love her artwork. It's so bright and I just think that it's very worshipful. Anyway, one of the things that you'll notice about this, because I'm going to mention that they were from Africa, these women are white. Some of the pictures that I've seen they show them black. I don't know which it is. I did some research on it and wasn't able to find out. Some of the oldest artwork that I saw of them, some tiles and murals, showed them white. So I don't know enough about the church in early Africa, the early church in Africa, to really be able to be an expert on that. But one of the reasons that I brought that up, because I really thought about just not saying anything, but the reason I brought that up is because I think that it's really beautiful and appropriate, and some of you may disagree with me, that's fine, but let me just tell you why I think this is appropriate. I think that it's appropriate to try to see ourselves in the saints. We have pictures of the Nativity where Jesus is black or white or Asian, and they're all beautiful because there's a song that says some children see him, and then it talks about, the different ways that children see them like themselves, and it helps us to relate to them. And I think that the same thing is true of the saints. They're not just for one particular culture or race, they're for all of us. And so seeing ourselves in them is just a really good thing. It helps us to relate to them. It helps us to see how we can call on them and how we can emulate them. It helps us to see them a little bit more as real people when we can identify with them. So if you're of another race, look for a picture of these two in your race, and you can do that with all of the saints, I think. So anyway, these two women were martyred in the year 203. That was in the early persecution of the church in Africa under Emperor Severus. Sorry, I'm stumbling around here. Perpetua was a 22-year-old noblewoman. She was still nursing her baby, and some scholars think that she may have actually been a widow because her husband isn't talked about in any of the stories. It talks about her father, who tried to convince her not to be a Christian so that she wouldn't be persecuted. And she said to him, "Can you call this pot," she was pointing to a pot, "can you call this by any other name than what it is?" And he said, "No, of course not." So she said, "Neither can I call myself by any other name than I am, a Christian." So she knew when she decided to be baptized that she was going to be persecuted. It was almost a given. And at the time of her baptism, God told her to pray for nothing but endurance in the face of her trials. In prison, she admitted that she was afraid. And I think that's also really important because we tend to think that the saints didn't feel afraid. Some of them, maybe they didn't, but that makes it seem like they're they have something that we can't possibly attain. And I think that it's important to know that we can all become saints. From the worst of us, think of St. Augustine, who was a womanizer and a drunkard and just all kinds of things, until he came to the Lord and God just really changed him. And it took a little while. We all struggle with our own sins and our fears and so on. So I think that it's really cool that she admitted that she was afraid. And she said that the worst thing was being separated from her baby. She was still nursing her baby. She gave her baby to her father to take care of. They were thrown to wild beasts in the arena, but there's a little bit more to the story that I want to tell you about. Two of the deacons that ministered to the prisoners paid the guards to put the martyrs into a better part of the prison. So it was really special that Perpetua's mother and her brother were able to bring her baby to her. And when she received permission for her baby to be with her, she said that her prison suddenly became like a palace to her. And this is one of my problems, is that I tend to see all the huge difficulties. Because you really feel those difficulties more than you feel the good that's going on in your life sometimes. And, you know, this isn't all the time. Sometimes I know my life is good. But there are times when I focus a little bit more on the difficulties, because those kind of, they call on you to focus on them. You know, you notice pain, you notice loneliness or whatever. But she was able to see the light in this. She was able to see, you know, yes, I'm going to die and I'm in this really horrible, dark prison, but I get to have my baby with me for a few minutes. And so she was able to nurse him some. Her brother asked her, her brother, who had also become a Christian and he was also killed, he asked her to pray and ask God whether they were going to have suffering or release. And what she saw when she prayed was a golden ladder that reached up to heaven, and on the sides of the ladder were swords, lances, hooks, and daggers. So if you were climbing up to heaven on this ladder and you weren't looking at heaven, you would get pierced by all of these weapons and you probably wouldn't make it. At the bottom of the ladder was a large dragon that was trying to scare people away from journeying up to heaven. And she saw her brother in this vision. She saw her brother go up first, and after he reached the top, he said he would wait for her, but he warned her to be careful of the dragon. And so she said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, he will not hurt me." And the dragon put his head down. Then she got to the top, and there was a man dressed like a shepherd who was feeding them curds. And so she ate that. When she woke up, she still tasted the sweet curds. So that was kind of cool. There were 4 of them who went to their death, and the men were torn up by, I can't remember, I think it was bears, but I'm not sure. Anyway, they were wild beasts, and they decided to have the women killed by a rabid heifer. After a couple of attacks, the crowd, and I think this is fairly unusual, I think that they knew that both these women were new mothers, and they cried out that they just couldn't take any more. So they were put back in their clothes. They had been stripped for the mauling by the heifer. They were put back into their clothes, and they were sent out for a gladiator to behead them. And as they went out, Perpetua called out to her brother and to the other Christians, "Stand fast in the faith and love one another. Do not let our sufferings be a stumbling block to you." Wow, that really struck me too, because it's like, it's easy to see the pain and suffering that other Christians go through because of their faith, and it's easy for us to say, okay, I want to do whatever I can to avoid that. But here she was saying, don't let our suffering be a stumbling block to you. Okay, so probably tomorrow, but possibly a different day, I'm going to talk about Felicity. I hope you all have a great day. Tell me what you think about Perpetua. Tell me how she inspires you and what you could emulate in her life. I love you all. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.